Welcome, viewers! Today we embark on a journey through the Book of Amos from the King James Bible. In the next 10 minutes, we will delve deeply into the layers of prophetic messages, social justice themes, and the timeless lessons that resonate through this powerful scriptural text. Amos, a shepherd-turned-prophet, uses his humble beginnings to speak boldly against the disparities and injustices of his time. His words, though centuries old, still echo with urgency and relevance in today's world. We'll explore how his calls for justice and righteousness challenge us to reflect on our own societal structures. Throughout this video, we will uncover the vivid imagery and poignant language Amos employs to deliver his divine messages. From visions of destruction to the hopeful promise of restoration, every word and phrase crafts a narrative that is as compelling as it is transformative. So subscribe and stay tuned as we unravel the rich tapestry of themes that Amos presents. Prepare to uncover the profound messages that Amos has for both his time and ours. Before we dive into the chapters, let's set the stage. The story of Amos is not just a tale from the distant past. It is a mirror reflecting the social and economic contours of his time. Amos stepped onto the historical stage during the reign of Jeroboam II, a period marked by significant economic prosperity in the northern kingdom of Israel. However, this wealth was not evenly distributed. Jeroboam II's era, spanning from around 791 to 751 BC, was one of expansion and affluence. Under his rule, Israel extended its borders and prospered economically. The rich enjoyed lavish lifestyles, indulging in luxurious palaces lined with ivory and expansive vineyards. Yet this glittering prosperity cast a long shadow over the poor and vulnerable. The wealth of the nation was accumulated at the expense of justice and equity, with the elite amassing wealth by exploiting the underprivileged. In the bustling marketplaces, merchants engaged in deceitful practices, using dishonest scales to cheat customers, a direct violation of the covenant's demands for fairness and honesty. Meanwhile, the judiciary, which was supposed to protect the rights of the poor, was rife with corruption. Judges favored the wealthy who could afford bribes, leaving the needy without recourse or representation. Amos, a shepherd and a tender of fig trees from Tekoa, witnessed these disparities. Unlike prophets who were often from elite or priestly classes, Amos came from a humble background. His outsider status provided him with a unique perspective on the social injustices and moral decay festering at the heart of Israelite society. His messages, brimming with fiery rhetoric and urgent warnings, were not merely religious pronouncements but a clarion call for social reform. He denounced the opulence of the rich, which was tainted by the tears of the oppressed. He challenged the nation to reflect on their actions and to change their ways, advocating for a society where justice rolled down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. With this backdrop, Amos's call to justice and righteousness becomes even more poignant. Join me as we explore Amos's call to prophethood and his visions of impending judgment. In the bucolic settings of Tekoa, a small village nestled in the hills of Judah, a humble shepherd named Amos received a call that would forever change his life and echo through the annals of biblical history. Unlike many prophets who hailed from illustrious lineage or priestly ranks, Amos was an ordinary man, tending to his flocks and sycamore figs. Yet, his ordinary background belies the extraordinary message he was chosen to deliver. Amos's transformation from a simple shepherd to a daring prophet is a testament to the unexpected ways in which the divine can manifest. He was not trained in the schools of prophets, nor did he seek out this monumental task. It was thrust upon him, a divine imperative that could not be ignored. With no other credentials than his calling, Amos stepped into the role with a courage that defied his humble origins. His message to Israel was dire and urgent, conveyed through visions that were as vivid as they were terrifying. Amos saw the very foundations of Israel shaken, literally and metaphorically. In one vision, he saw God forming locusts at the beginning of the crop season, a direct threat to the livelihood of the nation that depended heavily on agriculture. In another, he witnessed a great fire devouring the great deep and consuming part of the land, symbolic of an all-consuming divine judgment that was to come. Perhaps the most chilling of his visions was the plumb line, a simple tool used for measuring the straightness of a wall. God showed Amos a wall built true to plumb, with a plumb line in his hand, indicating that he would no longer overlook the crookedness of his people. This vision symbolized a final measurement against God's standards. a measurement that found Israel critically wanting. Through these metaphors and direct confrontations, Amos's message was clear. The societal sins of idolatry, greed, and the oppression of the poor and helpless would lead to inevitable divine retribution. His poetic language, rich in imagery and symbolism, was designed not merely to scare, but to provoke a moral reckoning. He called out the elite of his time, decrying their lavish lifestyles built on the backs of the oppressed, and warned of the ruin that luxury and injustice would bring upon the whole nation. Yet the starkness of his message was matched by the boldness of his delivery. Unafraid of confrontation, Amos spoke truth to power, challenging kings and priests alike. His words were not just criticisms, they were a clarion call for repentance and change. Amos's vivid imagery and stark warnings paint a dramatic picture of divine justice. His legacy is not just in the audacity of his message, but in the enduring call for a society that upholds justice and righteousness above all. As we reflect on his visions, we see not just ancient warnings, but timeless truths about the consequences of moral decay and the perpetual hope for renewal through justice. Navigate through the powerful messages of social justice and moral rebuke found in Amos's oracles. In the heart of the book of Amos, profound statements reverberate, highlighting the prophet's fervent advocacy for social justice. Amos, a shepherd-turned-prophet, cast a critical eye on the society of his time, one riddled with inequalities and moral decay. His messages, though centuries old, echo with timeless urgency. Amos's critique was unsparing when it came to the exploitation of the poor. He vividly depicted scenes where the needy were trampled and the downtrodden were sold for the price of shoes. They sell the righteous for silver, and the poor for a pair of shoes. They pant after the dust of the earth on the head of the poor, and turn aside the way of the meek, he proclaimed. His words were a fiery call to acknowledge the humanity and rights of the impoverished, urging a society built on compassion rather than greed. Corruption in leadership was another pillar of Amos's rebukes. He condemned the elite of his day, those who lounged on beds of ivory and stretched themselves on their couches, indifferent to the plight of those they governed. Hear this, O ye that swallow up the needy, even to make the poor of the land to fail, Amos thundered, exposing the callousness of a leadership engrossed in luxury and blind to justice. His oracles serve as a stark reminder of the corrosive effects of power when divorced from accountability and ethical stewardship. Moreover, Amos was vehement about the perversion of justice. In a society where the judicial system was twisted to favor the powerful, Amos's voice rang out clear. They turn judgment to wormwood and leave off righteousness in the earth, he declared. His critique wasn't merely an outcry against individual injustices, but a lament for the decay of judicial integrity itself. He envisioned a society where law and righteousness were not commodities to be bought and sold, but were the foundational pillars ensuring fairness and equity. Amos's call to societal repentance and a return to ethical monotheism was unequivocal. He implored his audience to seek good and not evil, that they may live. Let justice run down as waters and righteousness as a mighty stream, he urged, envisioning a community where equity and compassion flowed more abundantly than water. This was not merely poetic, it was a radical call to overhaul societal values, to replace exploitation and corruption with integrity and altruism. His message is clear. A society's vitality and its moral compass are intimately connected. For Amos, the health of a community is measured not by its wealth or military might, but by how it treats its most vulnerable members and upholds justice. Amos's stern rebukes and calls for justice are as relevant today as they were in his time. Explore Amos's prophecies of divine judgment and the promise of restoration. In the book of Amos, we encounter a profound duality, the stark warnings of impending doom paired with a luminous promise of renewal and redemption. This ancient prophet, a shepherd by trade, delivers messages that are as piercing as they are hopeful. Amos vividly portrays the consequences of Israel's moral failures. He speaks of earthquakes, famine, and desolation as divine responses to corruption, idolatry, and social injustice. I will send a fire upon Judah, and it shall devour the palaces of Jerusalem, declares the Lord through Amos. These images of destruction are not merely punitive. They serve as a drastic wake-up call, urging the people to return to the path of righteousness. Yet the tone of Amos's prophecy shifts dramatically as he introduces themes of restoration and renewal. Despite the severe judgments, he foresees a time when the fortunes of Israel will be restored. In that day will I raise up the tabernacle of David that is fallen, Amos prophesies. This restoration is not just about rebuilding structures, but about renewing the covenantal relationship between God and his people. It's about establishing justice and righteousness that flow like an ever-renewing stream. This blend of judgment and hope underscores a central theme, the unyielding mercy of God. Even as he chastises, God's commitment to his covenant endures. He envisions a future where the plowman shall overtake the reaper, and the mountains shall drip sweet wine. Here, Amos paints a picture of abundance and peace, a stark contrast to the scenes of judgment and ruin. These prophecies remind us that divine judgment is not the final word. There is always room for repentance. There is always hope for a new beginning. Even in judgment, Amos provides a glimmer of hope for redemption and restoration. This dual message of Amos, of accountability and mercy, challenges us to reflect on our own lives and societies, urging us to strive for a world where justice and righteousness are not just ideals, but realities. As we conclude, reflect on the enduring relevance of Amos's message in our world today. The prophet Amos, though centuries removed from our era, still speaks powerfully about issues that resonate deeply in our contemporary society. His stern warnings against social injustices and his calls for moral integrity echo in the corridors of our modern world, where disparities between the wealthy and the poor are stark and widening. Amos's voice, a blend of fiery admonition and hopeful promise, urges us to look critically at our own societies. He challenges us to dismantle systems of oppression and to rectify the scales of justice. His message is not just historical, it is a living call to action, urging us to foster communities where genuine worship and moral rectitude prevail. In a time where superficiality often overshadows substance, Amos's call for sincerity in worship and relationships offers a grounding perspective. His ancient words continue to challenge and inspire us to pursue justice and righteousness. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the book of Amos. If this exploration into the vivid and profound messages of Amos has enlightened you, don't hesitate to hit the like button. It helps more than you might think. And if your thoughts are brimming with reflections or questions, the comments section awaits your valuable insights. Let's cultivate a community where learning and discussion flourish. For those who are captivated by the depths of biblical wisdom and its application in today's complex world, subscribing is a step towards more enriching explorations. Each book, each chapter holds untold treasures that continue to guide and inspire, bridging millennia with messages that still resonate deeply in our hearts and societies. So, as we part ways today, carry with you the spirit of inquiry and the commitment to understanding more than the surface. Delve deeper, seek truth, and let these ancient texts illuminate your path in the modern world. Until next time, stay curious and stay enlightened.